This week on Chateau Capers, trees have to be pruned as we get ready for the big pour. No, bigger than that. You have one really good day when everything goes to plan, and you get punished for it the rest of the week. Last week we stared down the barrel of a full-blown pool disaster. 6 inches of water and 14 tonnes of gravel and shovelled, back-breaking, sweat-soaked effort rammed into that hole like we were burying our past. This week, concrete's inbound. And after that last mess-up, we were in no mood for another monumental cock-up. Stakes were high, spirits, well, they'd be drunk later. So I made a call. Enter Darren. Now, Darren ain't just any bloke, he's a builder. Straight out of Norfolk. Wears normal trainers on site because his toes are harder than iron, and he knows his way around a concrete pad better than most know the back of their hands. Ah! Whose hands are these? He's done this dance before, pouring pads for peanuts, but the lorry can't get down a drive with his tree branch in the way. In Darren's hands, even a little chopper can do the job. You want solid ground? You get Darren. As mentioned, it was the day of the big concrete pour, the most nerve-wracking part of the swimming pool project yet. We knew the cement lorries wouldn't fit through the main gate, so we needed to open the side gate. Easily done, except that the trees had grown in the way and needed to be pruned. With the chainsaw working again, it was time to get up the ladder and give a few trees a haircut. Darren, a friend from the UK, was here to help oversee the concrete pour and also cast an eye over some of the Chateau's other issues and guide us in the right direction. Now that the trees were cut back and the ivy removed, the path was clear for the concrete delivery. Chateau DIY were here again to film the next phase of the swimming pool installation, but it wasn't long before they were lending a hand. So Chris, how are you finding Chateau life?
Loving it actually. It makes me want to have a chateau now.
The concrete needs a reinforcing wire mesh for strength and durability. We laid large sheets of it suspended above the gravel so that it will be closer to the vertical centre of the pad. The mesh sections needed to be tied together with wire to ensure nothing pops up out of the concrete after it's poured in. Oh, you've got quite a technique going there, Darren.
Oh, keep it quiet.
Everybody will want your pliers. And then we were finished. We just had to wait for the lorries to arrive. Welcome to Jane's Find of the Day with Jane.
Hello and welcome to this week's Find of the Day at Chateau de Pican. Today I'm talking about this. I'm going to be quite blunt and say that I think it's absolutely hideous. One of my dear friends described it as ghastly, and I think it is, in my opinion, ghastly both in terms of its aesthetics and also what it represents, because this is an opium pillow, and whilst this very one might never have been used in an opium den, certainly this sort of thing was used in opium dens. And imagine how uncomfortable, without taking opioids, you would be using this as a pillow, this porcelain thing. And in the shape of a child. It's particularly horrifying, I think. So I'm not going to keep this. It's certainly not going to be on display. We've got several of them. We've got at least 3, we might have more. And I don't like them at all. However, they are interesting, and this one has also got the stamp on the bottom, which is Yawan Zheng Kan, I think that's right, and that roughly translates as a collector of delightful trinkets or something like that, which is clearly not a very prestigious mark, but at the same time it does give it some context. And I believe this is from the early 20th century, which was when Opium dens were certainly on the retreat, but might still have been in operation in China.
It was all hands on standby as an incredibly efficient mixer began pouring the concrete evenly across the area of the pool.
I'm not sure we're needed, are we?
I'd have a glass of wine, shall we?
Just along the valley from us is another chateau, owned by more intrepid Brits, Karen and Steve. Steve had come over to lend a hand raking and smoothing the concrete. Many hands make light work.
We might not have much to do today.
It's looking very efficient.
Yeah.
And that is an ultimate boy's toy. Look at the satisfaction he's having.
I know. Remote control concrete pouring.
Cameraman Chris climbed in first for some action shots. Watching the pour was quite mesmeric, but before long Darren wanted to get in and start levelling. Jane and Steve climbed in first as raking assistants, pushing the concrete towards areas Darren deemed too low. Everyone was worried about being the person that trips on the wire mesh and goes headfirst into the concrete on camera. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, that never happened. It was a day where everything seemed to be going smoothly. It was a day that had started with Jane and I being granted a 4-year extension to our visas. Perhaps we'd turned a corner off Calamity Street and onto Plain Sailing Avenue. The first load was in and the second lorry was in position.
As a French speaker, I was liaising with the cement deliverers. Both drivers were excellent, and the international language of building enabled Darren to indicate that he wanted more water in the second concrete mix. As the pour filled the last corner, Darren said we had sufficient concrete down and he was ready for the pour to stop. I told the cement driver, but he said he thought the far corner looked a bit low. The driver said he would wait until after the concrete had been pulled flat all over, which is what Darren was doing with the tamper, to make sure. A bit more concrete was ultimately needed, and then it was spot on. Once the pour was finished, Darren and Rory used a 4-metre-long straight edge to tamp the pad lengthways. But they hadn't made an escape plan for Rory. Eventually Darren lowered a ladder and Rory was able to climb out.
Just maybe tamp it.
Is that what they call that finish?
Yeah,
The welly tamp finish.
a welly tamp.
The welly tamp.
Oh, that was really good. Got to be really hard work at the end. I know Darren's done an awful lot of the hard work, but yeah, it was really tough at the end just tamping it down. But Darren's tamped it that way and that way, whereas we were just raking before. It was quite easy. Nice.
And who's the sweatiest? It's you, darling.
Yes. I don't know, why is that? Why am I the sweatiest?
After that, they used an enormous long-handled bull float to carefully smooth out the pad. This was particularly tricky as they're not designed to be used below ground level. Darren had had a great idea though, to tie rope to the float so that a second person could help lift and move the float into the next position. Darren and Rory took turns with the bull float, smoothing lengthways and widthways until the pad was as polished as they could possibly make it. It had been a very special though exhausting day that couldn't have gone any better, so we celebrated with a barbecue and a swim at our friend Karina's.
The moment that perhaps none of you have been waiting for.
In terms of what this might be worth, well, I've seen items similar to this on sale for as little as €40, might even be less than that. But I've also seen them on sale for $400, which is quite astonishing. I'm not sure who's going to pay that, but I've certainly seen them sold at $100. So yeah, it's interesting. Some people do collect them, and they are proper vintage items now. This might well be 100 years old. So I guess it has some interest, but I will be selling it as soon as I get the chance.
So for a while now, we've been calling this the Creaky Bedroom since we moved in, and we've been putting up with it. But it's got to the point where we're wanting to install an ensuite bathroom in here, and I'm too scared and unwilling to do it without knowing why this creaks so much. And so we've ripped up the floorboards all the way back, tried to do it as carefully as possible because it's parquet flooring, herringbone. But we found that these joists are inadequately positioned. They're not deep enough into each side. Bearers, is that what we call them?
Bearings are not.
Yeah, the bearings are not deep enough. So this one's barely 20 mil onto the central ancient wooden beam. And we found that they've taken joists out that were much better seated to be replaced with these. And so this one flexes. As soon as you stand on it, this one's really bouncy. And we also discovered that you can see these tiles here. So they're 20 mil thick, these tiles, hollow tiles, like very thin bricks. And they've used them as the ceiling for the room beneath. So they've put a brick ceiling up and they've tied them on to these joists, which are inadequate anyway. So there's all that weight and the floorboards, people trying to walk on top, and no wonder it creaks. So we're going to have to replace the joists, and we're probably going to have to lose the floorboards as well because they're in a bad state already. Yes, yes, it's parquet, but it's not that old. It's pine, it's not hardwood, and they've been machined, so they're not ancient. So I think we're just going to have to take them up, and we're probably not going to be able to reuse them. But Darren, what is, I still don't understand the clips. If I get a clip for here, say this was a new one gone in,
Yes.
because I wanted it to be, what clip do I need?
So it'd be like a truss clip, so it would be able to sit on this main beam that's running the whole.
And it would just screw into that several times.
Into this beam, so you can make a mechanical fix into that, and then you can screw into the side of your new joist, which will then hold it, and the weight will be bared through that clip, as well as your bearings that are cut out in the mortise there.
Okay.
And you've got good fixing points, rather than trying, like they have with this one, trying to get a nail to go in at an angle that's never going to hold it. So that will support it so much better.
Yeah.
And keep everything off the ceiling and
the old joist that you can't move.
What you'll have to now call ceiling joists rather than being floor joists.
So have ceiling joists and floor joists.
Yeah.
The twain shall never meet. So the next thing is to rip it all up, but I'm not going to do that today.
Darren's stay was all too brief. He'd done the lion's share of the work filling the extractor hole in the back kitchen. So on the way to the airport, we stopped at Lourdes for an ice cream and a miracle.
Hello, Darren.
The next day I got busy removing floorboards, and it was lucky I did, because I was going to discover some extensive woodworm damage which desperately needed repair and treatment. We intend to replace the floor with solid oak flooring. This room is going to have an extensive facelift, but once it's complete, I think it will look fantastic.
Well, that's over halfway there. That's 2/3 of the floorboards are up, I'd say now. And, well, it's quite astonishing, really, the way that they've remodelled the joists under this floor in a way that means it's far less well supported than it used to be. So I've no idea why that happened. I'm not even going to try and speculate. But at least I know what I've got to do to move forward, and that is to put new joists in all the gaps where there used to be old joists. And as Darren said, we'll end up with 2 sets of joists. There'll be the ceiling joists, which are effectively just holding up this tile brick-like ceiling. And then there'll be the new joists, which will be for the floor. And so the creaky ones that are holding up the ceiling, hopefully they won't interact with the floor at all, in which case hopefully then will be no more squeaking. What I've also discovered is that there's a big central beam running along the centre of the room, which is where central beams usually are, and it's really old wood. So it's quite a beautiful old, it's like a tree, it's tree shaped, not even perfectly square. And that also suggests that under the boxing in the room below, which is sort of the entrance hall to the gîte area, that's all just perfectly boxed. And I've always wondered what's under there, whether it was old wood or a rolled steel joist. And now we have our answer. We've got this ancient timber that for some reason they decided we're going to box in and hide. And I'm quite sure it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So if we ever get time, and it probably won't be this year because there's far too much to do already, we'll probably uncover it and then have it on display, because it looking at the top, I can only imagine it's going to look fantastic underneath. So that's a wonderful find. We didn't know that there'd be one there. We hoped there would. The way the floor was bouncing, we assumed there wasn't a central. I assumed that perhaps they'd ripped it out. And anyway, there is one, and that's brilliant news for the future. But for now, I've just got to keep ripping this out, tidying it up. Then we'll have to get all of the nails out of all the old joists. Then I'll have to measure up to see how much new joist I'm going to need. Go and buy that. Then we're going to work out what floor we're going to put down here, whether we're going to recreate the herringbone parquet effect or just have straight floorboards. That's to be decided, but then we're going to get that down. We've got to do this as quickly as possible because I have to get a bathroom started in here, because we need at least 3 more bathrooms or shower rooms. So there's going to be one here. There's going to be one on the other side of the wall, just there in a tiny room that we've affectionately been called the confessional. And then we need one in the downstairs laundry room because we need a step-free access room before the wedding. And so that's going to be done as well. So apart from the swimming pool and finishing off the back kitchen, all I'm going to be doing is joisting this floor, floorboarding this floor, installing a shower room, installing a shower room, installing a shower room, finishing off the back stairs, and all before the wedding, which is in 2 months. In 2 months. Don't know why I'm talking to you.
As always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.